What if we could rewind the clock back to 2003? Not to stop a bad haircut from happening, though let's be honest, there were a lot of those, but to undo a decision with far greater consequences, the invasion of Iraq. It's a question historians and late-night comedy hosts alike ponder. Today we're diving into that alternate timeline, exploring two major questions. Would the Middle East have been more stable without the Iraq War? And would the monstrous force that is ISIS have gained less traction? Let's get into it. Saddam Hussein, brutal dictator, purveyor of delightful sweaters. The man was a walking contradiction. But could his iron fist have actually contained some of the sectarian tensions that exploded after his removal? It's a grim thought, but some experts believe it's plausible. Saddam's regime was undeniably oppressive, but it was also a secular one that kept a tight lid on the Sunni-Shia divide. Would that have prevented the widespread violence we saw post-invasion? It's impossible to say for sure, but it's a chilling possibility. ISIS. The name alone conjures images of terror, destruction, and a world grappling with the horrors of extremism. But beyond the headlines and the fear, there's a complex story of how this group came to be. The band everyone hates more than Nickelback. It's a dark joke, but it underscores the universal disdain for this group. This group thrived on chaos, using the power vacuum left by the war to recruit, train, and spread its twisted ideology. They capitalized on the instability, drawing in disillusioned youths and those seeking a sense of purpose in a fractured world. But what if that vacuum had never existed? Imagine a Middle East where peace and stability reigned, where communities thrived without the shadow of war looming over them. Without the war's destabilizing effects, would ISIS have even emerged in the form we know it? Would the seeds of extremism have found such fertile ground, or would they have withered in the face of prosperity and unity? It's a debate that rages on. Scholars, politicians, and everyday citizens continue to argue over the root causes and the what-ifs of history. Some argue that the underlying conditions for extremism were already present in the region. They point to poverty, lack of education, and political repression as the true culprits, suggesting that even without war, these issues would have led to some form of radicalization. Others contend that the war was a catalyst, a monstrous PR campaign that drew in recruits from across the globe. The images of conflict and the narrative of a holy war were powerful tools in the hands of ISIS's propagandists. The truth, as always, is likely somewhere in the murky middle. It's a complex interplay of factors, a web of causes and effects that defy simple explanations. But by examining these questions, we can hope to understand not just the past, but also how to build a more stable and peaceful future. Iran, America's frenemy forever. The Iraq War inadvertently strengthened Iran's hand in the region. With Saddam, Iran's biggest rival, out of the picture, their influence grew. But in our alternate timeline, Saddam remains. This means Iran's ambitions are kept in check, at least to some extent. This doesn't mean they'd be sipping tea and playing backgammon. Iran's desire for regional dominance predates the Iraq War. But without the power vacuum created by the invasion, their path to influence would have been rockier and their rise potentially less meteoric. Section 5, the fragile, becomes the broken Iraq without the invasion. Iraq before the invasion was no picnic. Saddam's regime was brutal and repressive, but the country had a functioning, albeit flawed, state apparatus. Could this have provided a bulwark against the complete societal collapse that followed the invasion? Perhaps. Or perhaps Iraq was always a house of cards, destined to crumble at the slightest breeze. It's easy to look back with 2020 hindsight and see only the path not taken. Section 6. A breeding ground for terror. The Iraq War was a gift to terrorist recruiters. The invasion and subsequent occupation created a power vacuum and chaos which extremist groups exploited to their advantage. The instability provided fertile ground for radical ideologies to take root and spread. It fueled the narrative of the West waging war on Islam, a narrative that resonated with disaffected young men across the Muslim world. These young men, feeling marginalized and oppressed, found a sense of purpose and belonging in extremist groups. The war became a rallying cry, a symbol of resistance against perceived Western aggression. But even without Iraq, terrorism wouldn't have simply vanished. Remember Al-Qaeda? They were already a formidable force, orchestrating attacks and spreading their ideology long before the Iraq War. Their existence and operations were not contingent on the conflict in Iraq. They were the OG terror masterminds, and they were already a global threat before 2003. The 9/11 attacks were a stark reminder of their reach and capability. Al-Qaeda's network spanned continents, and their influence was felt worldwide. Terrorism, like a hydra, is adept at adapting and finding new heads. When one source of conflict is addressed, another often emerges. The Hydra's heads symbolize the multifaceted nature of terrorism, constantly evolving and re-emerging in different forms and locations. Without Iraq, it's likely that extremism would have manifested in other ways, fueled by different grievances and conflicts. The roots of terrorism are deep and complex, often intertwined with political, social, and economic issues. Addressing one conflict doesn't eliminate the underlying causes that drive individuals towards extremism. The fight against terrorism requires a multifaceted approach, addressing not just the symptoms but the root causes as well. Section 7, the Middle East's deep-rooted issues. Let's be real, the Middle East was a powder keg even before the Iraq War. Authoritarian regimes, economic inequality, sectarian tensions, these issues weren't caused by the invasion, they were ripe for exploitation. So even without the war, would the region have remained peaceful? Unlikely. The Arab Spring, a series of uprisings across the Middle East that began in 2010, demonstrated the volatility of the region. While the Iraq War undoubtedly exacerbated existing tensions, it's crucial to remember that it didn't create them. Section 8. A world unshackled from Iraq. Imagine a world where the US hadn't spent trillions of dollars on the Iraq War. What could that money have been used for? Education, healthcare? Perhaps investing in some really comfortable chairs for the White House Situation Room. The possibilities are endless. And frankly, a little depressing when you consider the opportunity cost. Beyond the financial burden, the war also strained international relations and diverted attention from other global challenges like climate change and the rise of China. Without Iraq, the world stage might look very different today. Section 9. The Unknowable Truth. Here's the thing about hypothetical scenarios. They're impossible to prove. We can spend countless hours debating them, but in the end they remain just that, hypothetical. They are the playground of the mind, where imagination runs wild and reality takes a back seat. We can analyze, speculate, and pontificate until the cows come home, but we'll never know for sure what would have happened if the US hadn't invaded Iraq. The ripple effects of such a monumental decision are beyond our grasp. Every action, every choice sets off a chain of events that intertwine in ways we can't predict. Perhaps the Middle East would have descended into chaos regardless. The region has long been a tinderbox, with historical, religious, and political tensions simmering beneath the surface. The invasion might have been just one spark in a landscape already primed for conflict. Perhaps a different, even more terrifying terrorist group would have emerged. The power vacuum created by the fall of regimes often leads to the rise of new, sometimes more radical factions. The complexities of geopolitics mean that one change can lead to unforeseen and often dire consequences. Or perhaps, just perhaps, things would have been different. Better even. Maybe the region would have found a path to peace and stability without external intervention. It's a tantalizing thought, one that offers a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness of what actually transpired. It's a question that will continue to be debated for years to come, a stark reminder of the unintended consequences of war and the elusive nature of what if. The unknowable truth lingers in the shadows of history, a testament to the complexity of human decisions and their far-reaching impacts. As we ponder these scenarios, we are reminded of the importance of thoughtful, informed choices in shaping our world.